Yes, guys, what's happening? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to this evening's live stream. We're now best part of 2 weeks into the transfer window, and still from a Chelsea perspective, no one has come in the door, but Todd Boehly seems to be doing things his own way. Bruce Buck's gone, Marina Granovskaya's on her way out. Romelu Lukaku has left the building. Thank God for that. And things seem to be heating up a little bit. Definite interest in players. Maybe the wheels are being set in motion slightly, but when you see the likes of Manchester City, bringing in Calvin Phillips, Liverpool bringing in Darwin Núñez, you see other clubs, Arsenal even doing good business, a deal agreed for Gabriel Jesus, already got Fabio Vieira in. It's hard not to kind of sit and worry a little bit that, yeah, it's great. Every time you go on Twitter, there seems to be a new way for Chelsea to be looking at a player whether that's interested in, monitoring, watching. Thomas Tuchel's a big fan of, admirer. Like, all these words we're getting from these reports, but there's nothing concrete yet. But obviously, yeah, there's a few players to discuss, a few things that are heating up. I'm delighted to be joined by Laurenz. Mate, thank you for coming as always. Really appreciate it. No signings so far, mate, but what have you made of the way that Todd Boehly's gone about things? He's not messing about, is he?
No, he's absolutely not messing about. I mean, when it was first announced or not even confirmed, shall we say reported, that Marina would leave and Todd Boehly would kind of take charge of all the transfer stuff for at least this season or this summer, before we probably and hopefully will appoint a proper director of football at some point. I wasn't initially a big fan of it. I'm still not sure if I'm a big fan of it, if I'm honest, just because, not because I think he's incapable, but I feel like if you don't know the industry, I feel like it's too easy to get mugged a little bit. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, if he has the right people around him to help him out, to explain things, do you know what I mean? Then fine. But we don't know whether he does have that or not. And there was also the report, wasn't it, by Matt Law? So it wasn't like some, scrappy source saying that other clubs are actually like, kind of thinking, oh, well, Chelsea won't be doing good business here because, Marina's gone and Todd Boehly doesn't know what he's doing. Now, what I would love the most is for him to prove everyone wrong in that sense. But yeah, it seems there's a lot going on. I mean, you said it a minute ago where it's like we're taking so long to make signings. But when you think about all the things that we have done in this period, there's actually a lot that's been going on. It's just not been signings, right? I mean, getting rid of Bruce Buck, that has to be, sorted. Marina, getting rid of her, that had to be sorted. Like the whole structure changed the club, obviously. Getting Lukaku out the door had to be sorted. Like, there's a lot of stuff that went on that is probably important to make the rest of the summer move along quicker, I assume. But yeah, like you say, we're interested in so many players. Other clubs are signing players. We're not. So at some point, like, I'm a positive person in general. I'm a very positive person. I try to always stay positive. But, as the longer things drag on, the more even I will be a little bit annoyed. Because, I mean, I said it all along when the likes of Pice was, like, complaining on Twitter, like, already 2 weeks ago. Where are the signings? And I was like, well, as long as they're here by the time we start pre-season, it's fine. But at this point, we start pre-season next week, and we still haven't signed anyone. So at this point, there is a good chance even I'll be annoyed, because maybe we'll get one signing done between now and next week, maybe. But definitely not all the signings that we want and need.
Chance. Yeah, it's for sure, mate. I mean, I'll come on your channel and said that I wouldn't be that, as long as they're in by pre-season, I'm quite happy with that. But then, as you say, every week that goes by where no signings are made or no bids have even gone in, you do start to get a little bit more worried and a little bit more frustrated, particularly when the clubs in and around you in a table are doing business. Arsenal doing good business. Tottenham have done good business. Liverpool and City have bought players in. Like, we need to get a bit of a move on. I know things are going on behind the scenes, but from a fan's perspective, you can't really see that. You like to sort of see some kind of concrete evidence that stuff is going on. But I mean, of the stories that we do kind of have decent reports on, decent evidence of stuff going on, let's kick things off, mate. Matthias de Ligt. Nathan Gissing, actually, from Damartio last night, breaking the news that Chelsea would be prepared to do a swap deal for Matthias de Ligt of Timo Werner plus 25 to 30 million euros. It's talks will continue. That's Juve saying that's not enough money. Werner supposedly keen on a move to Juve, but going on to say that talks will continue about a potential swap deal. Chelsea plan to offer a maximum of 40 to 45 million plus Werner for the Ligt. Now, 2 questions for you, mate. 1, you a fan of Matthijs de Ligt? And 2, what are your thoughts on these swap deals? Because it's something that we don't tend to see that much of in football. You see it in American sports, baseball, NFL. Bowley's probably bringing some of his American sports background there from baseball with these swap deals. But I've got to say that I quite like it because 1, it reduces the price of someone we want, and it also gets a lot of dead wood out the club potentially that we might struggle to shift if we're just looking for a straight sale.
No, 100%. I mean, excuse me. I mean, I like the Ligt, and I'll get into that in a second. But the biggest part of this that I like is more getting rid of Werner than I am the big fan of getting the Ligt. Like, I like the Ligt, and, I'd be okay with that. No problem at all. But I'm concerned that we won't be able to get rid of Werner. So if Juve are silly enough to get him, quite frankly, then please do. And Juve, if any of you are watching, Timo Werner is an amazing footballer. Best touch I've ever seen, finishing, quality, dribbling. He's basically Hazard. Do you know what I mean? Like, you just need to get him. He'll be phenomenal. Lukaku, he can only counter-attack. Werner can only counter-attack. Perfect for Serie A. So just get him. He'll be amazing for you. He'll score 50 goals a season, lads. But de Ligt, he's a tough one. Now, can I pretend to watch Juve every week? Absolutely not. Now, I know in his first season there, he didn't, at least as far as I'm aware, he didn't play all the time because, they still had Chiellini and Bonucci, and they played a back 4 for the most part, right? Now, Chiellini and Bonucci, both at times, more so Chiellini, obviously now leaving Juve, has kind of slowly been phased out just because they're old, right? And de Ligt plays. Now, some people on Twitter that are apparently Serie A fans and Juve fans have been telling me that there's this misconception going on that he's been pretty poor for them, when that's actually apparently completely wrong, and he's been playing phenomenally for 95% of the time. Now, I'm not sure if that's true or not. Why would they, I don't know. I guess we big our players up on the one hand, but at the same time, there's certain players which we absolutely ridicule if they play badly, right? So maybe he's better than I kind of had worried, I guess, because obviously when he left Ajax, everyone was a bit confused that he went to Juve, let's be honest. But what a player he was at Ajax. That Champions League run that they had, he was captain of that team at 19. That is mental. And not just like a captain, he's the most talented player, we'll give him the captain's armband. Like, he was such an actual captain. And, I kept saying all these weeks when we're talking about signings after we knew that Rudiger was leaving, I was like, okay, we need someone a little bit more experienced to replace that. Well, to replace Rudiger's experience, but also to replace his leadership. Now, the leadership would be replaced with de Ligt, arguably even increased over Rudiger. Not because Rudiger isn't the leader, but de Ligt is more so of that, in my opinion. But that still doesn't change the fact that he's 22, right? So he's still not particularly experienced. Of course, maybe more so than a lot of other 22-year-olds. Mind you, Trevor Chalobah, well, he's now 22. I'm not sure if he was 22 at the start of the season as well. But regardless, so he started playing for us at the start of last season at the same age. Obviously, they were at very different levels of experience at the same age, right? So he has experience, but not that amount of it. But in general, can't complain. The only thing that worries me is the wages he's on at Juve already. Like, stupid wages. As far as I'm aware, it's 280,000 euros a week. Euros, sure, but that's still in pounds. Like, with how the world's going, it's probably like, what, 260? Like,
so it'll be less than Werner's contract.
Yeah, a little less, sure.
Yeah.
But what I'm getting at basically is if we offered Rudiger 260k, we might have just kept Rudiger. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
that's kind of why, there was kind of been a little bit of talk about the Ligt for months, right? Even when the season was still going on and Rudiger was like, we were still all hoping that he would stay, but there was rumors that he would leave. There was a couple of times we were linked to the Ligt. And back when it was reported, I was like, I just couldn't see it happening because I thought if we were willing to pay a centre-back that much money in wages, then surely we would have just given that to Rudiger. But seemingly, obviously now we have new ownership. So that obviously can change everything. Maybe Todd Bowley would have given Rudiger that amount of money, but he couldn't because of the sanctions. And then by the time he was here, Rudiger decided to leave. So maybe that's the difference. But yeah, he's a good player. In my opinion, probably better in a back 4 than he's in a back 3. Well, he'd be certainly great as a central centre-back in a back 3, but that's not where we need a player. We need a left-side centre-back. So I'm not sure how good he'd be at that. But hey, he's 22. So, like,
Yeah.
again, look at Chalobah. Like, players improve so much from 22 upwards, especially centre-backs. Like, wingers, maybe from 22, you're expecting a little bit less improvement over the rest of their career than you expect from centre-backs, midfielders, strikers. So there is like Clutch says here, he has played all three in the back three. Sure. But what I'm getting at is, didn't we all want, we finally want a left-footed player for the left side of the back three, and I was signing another right-footed player. If we signed the Ligt. But just the idea to get rid of Werner and get the Ligt, the money wouldn't be stupid then. We're getting rid of Werner's wages. Sure, even if the Ligt wages are high, like, because Werner's are gone, it's kind of more feasible and more...
swap. It's just a swap of the wages, isn't it, really?
Exactly that. And who knows? Maybe the Ligt would even be accepting of a slightly lesser deal because he would accept that his career slightly stagnated a little bit over the last couple of years there. So maybe he would even accept a little less money. Who knows? So in general, I'm a fan of it. In general, I'm a fan of the Ligt, but I'm a big fan of this whole swap deal idea.
I mean, mate, do you think obviously Chelsea preparing to offer 25 to 30 million euros, but Juve probably want a bit more? I mean, we offer a max of 40 to 45. Do you think? I think 40 to 45 is quite a lot, that plus Werner as well. I'd be happy to maybe pay somewhere about 35 million euros plus Werner, because I think going to 40.
Well, how much do you value Werner as these days?
Oh, he's worth fuck all, isn't he? Let's be honest. Like,
that's the problem. I guess I don't know. The problem is, how much do Juve want for the Ligt, right? So let's say they probably want like 60, 70 million euros, right? So that's 55 to 65 million pounds.
Yeah.
I don't think it's like, maybe a little less, like you say, 35, 40 rather than 45, 40 to 45. But you also have to understand if other clubs don't value Timo Werner particularly highly anymore.
And be more cash.
If we want to get rid of him, we just have to suck that up. We can't say, but we're only giving you 35 plus Werner. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'd rather give them 5 million more and get rid of Werner than, be stingy about those 5 mil.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. And I think this is, I've got to be honest, man, I think this is our best chance to get rid of Werner. I can't see anyone coming in for a straight sale. I think if Juve are happy to accept it, I think we just need to get him off the books and move him on. And I think this swap deal has definitely got legs. But I mean, staying at the back, mate. Let me just quickly get to this in the chat. Yeah, Chiellini's gone to LAFC and the MLS, so Juve would have to bring in a couple more centre backs potentially. Mate, Jules Koundé. This is, for me, this is ridiculous, because we should have signed him last summer. It didn't happen. As soon as the window opens, even beforehand, he's definitely coming this summer. He's definitely coming.
Marina to London.
Yeah, mate. The guy was hanging out.
As soon as the season ended, I'm like, what did you do here then?
Mate, he's waiting for the megastore to open. something like that, because he was in London. He's obviously waiting for something to happen. But we're getting, it's definitely happening. It's happening. And then Marina leaves, and it comes out that Koundé was more of a club target rather than a Thomas Tuchel target. Now, mate, do you think that means that we're turning away from Koundé towards the Ligt, or do you think that we could still get both?
Well, I don't know. Do you remember who actually reported that it was a club target and not a Tuchel target? Because I remember the report.
Mate, I can't remember if it was Matt Law. Maybe it might have been Fabrizio. I can't remember.
I think it was someone that big. I feel like it was someone slightly less big, but I could be wrong.
I can't remember.
But like you said earlier, I think it's absolutely ludicrous. Ludicrous on every level, by the way. Like, number one, why has he been our target then? If a manager doesn't actually want him. It was Gissing. Okay, Nathan Gissing. If our manager didn't actually want him for that long, number one, everyone needs to stop complaining that he didn't get his player last year, if he didn't want him that badly anyway. Number two, why is our manager not capable of telling the club when he doesn't want a player? I don't understand this. So many fans are like, he didn't actually want to. It was. I don't know, there's a different one. No. Everyone's like, he didn't actually want Lukaku, and now he apparently actually doesn't want Koundé. I'm like, sorry. Like, I understand that you've had problems with club hierarchy in the past, the Dortmund and the PSG. I get that. And maybe he doesn't want to cause certain problems. I also understand that. But, there has to be a certain medium to it. Obviously, don't go batshit crazy at the board above you and say, I want this, and if you don't give me this, I'm going to fucking, leave and throw a hissy fit and all sorts of things. Of course, he shouldn't be doing that. But if there's players that the club are trying to sign and he doesn't actually want them, then he needs to inform the club about this and make it very clear that he's not a fan of that, because what a waste of money and time, right? Now, again, who knows how true it is? Maybe all that means is Marina wanted him more than Tuchel, rather than that it means Tuchel doesn't want Koundé. Do you know what I mean? Maybe it's a mix of that. We also have to think Ben Jacobs, obviously, he's been very good throughout the throughout the takeover process, the sale process of the club. Now, that's kind of made him a kind of a bigger figure in the Chelsea Twitter or Chelsea media scene. Now, I'm not sure, because I never heard his name before the takeover, right? So I'm not sure if he is good on transfer news as well or not, if I'm 100% honest with you. But he said he still thinks Koundé will get over the line even now with Marina gone. So I still think we should be signing Koundé and De Ligt, because number two, I mean, we lost 2 centre-backs, so we definitely need 2 centre-backs, that's for sure. And also we need someone for the right. I mean, if Aspie, whether Aspie leaves or not, Chalobah is great and all. But even if you say, okay, we stick with Chalobah, but then we still have no backup to Chalobah either, right? So we need someone as the right side centre-back, and we need someone as the left side centre-back, and centre-back. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's what's good about De Ligt, because he can obviously comfortably play at least 2, if not all 3 positions. But yeah, in my opinion, we need to get Koundé done. Do I think it needs to be Koundé and it can't be anybody else? Not necessarily, but on Koundé, we've done so much scouting, so much background checks over the last, 18 to 24 months, that doing it on new players now would just be such a waste of resources for the last 18 months and such a waste of time for the last 18 months. And I think he's a good player. The only problem he has a little bit is maybe a lack of height. Not in the back three. I don't think
he's got a bit of a temper on him as well, isn't he? He's a bit short-tempered.
Yeah. But again, Rudiger was that. Do you know what I mean? I feel like once you come to a bit of a bigger club, I feel like these temperamental players, I feel like they know to pull the handbrake on that a little bit once they get to a bigger stage. So I wouldn't be that concerned with that part, but still, it's something to consider.
Mate, do you think, like, obviously, Fabrizio reporting that, Koundé's still on the list. We know Chelsea, there's a number of centre-backs on the list. But there's still been no official proposal. Sevilla wants 65 million euros. Now, from my perspective, if Thomas Tuchel 100% wants Jules Koundé, we've got 65 million euros. Why have we not done it? Like, no, that's the other way of looking at it as well. And I know you can look at it both ways, but when you think about it like that, if Tuchel really wants him and he's on the list and he fits the profile, he's young, 22, 23 years of age, can play in a 3, can play in a 4, can play right side, can play right back if needed as well. We've seen him do that for France and Sevilla on occasions. He fits the mould. Why have we not done anything?
That is my question, mate. I don't understand. Rick said it here. You shouldn't always back the manager. There's certain things that you need to sign based on philosophy, like Liverpool would have signed Julian Brandt. Would they? I feel like they signed Salah a while ago. I swear back then, Brandt
they did I think they wanted Brandt though as well, like Klopp.
But at the same time as Salah.
Oh, I don't
swear
know.
Brandt is only 23 now, so Brandt would have been about 12 when they signed Salah. Do you know what I mean? No, obviously not. But you get what I'm trying to say. So I understand that. The problem is just if now that we've had an ownership change, and if Bowley's just like, I'll give Tuchel what he wants, and then Tuchel doesn't want Koundé that much, it's confusing to me. And like you say, I don't really understand why there wouldn't have been an official proposal. Like, what are we waiting for? I mean, we waited too long in the first place because Diego Carlos, the other centre-back, left to Aston Villa, which means they will be losing their 2 starting centre-backs if we sign Koundé, which means they will be more hesitant to go down in price with Koundé because they already lost the other centre-back. If they kept Diego Carlos by the time we signed Koundé, we'd probably get Koundé for cheaper. Obviously, at the time, the takeover was still going on, and probably can't, it was more down to Aston Villa just being that quick rather than us doing so badly wrong on that. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Just get it done. Please, come on, just get me a play. I mean, Clutch says it there. Kimpembe is on the list. I don't mind Kimpembe. I know a lot of people ridicule him and say he makes
massive
errors and mistakes. I don't know.
Would you prefer him? Would you prefer him to Nathan Ake?
Kimpembe to Ake are millions.
Yeah.
But Is Kimpembe left-footed? I feel like he might be. Ake is the next weird one, man. Like, I mean, I think we said this on my stream last week.
Mate, apparently he's quite high on the list.
Yeah, it's weird to me,
depending
man.
on what reports you read. But I mean,
yeah.
Look, don't get me wrong. He's not a bad player. He can play. Look, he's almost like, I see it as like slightly more advanced version of Ampadu. Can play left side, can play centre back, can play holding midfield, and he's a little bit further down the line. Look, he's not played that much. He's not played that much at City. He's not awful. I wouldn't think it was a dreadful signing, but I think we can probably do much better. But I mean, mate, do you think, because obviously Koundé, same age roughly as De Ligt, we're losing. I know age doesn't equal experience, of course not. But do you think it's very much? I'm just not sure if it's going to be one of those two, and then plus maybe someone like a Premier League centre back as such. Because we've looked at obviously we've talked about Ake. Max Kilman has been one that's been kind of talked about from Wolves, and also Webster.
I've missed that link completely. I've not even.
Yeah, Max Kilman was like, it's not that new. I think it was talked about last year as well. I've even seen some people saying about Webster from Brighton as well. I mean, do you think it could be like one sort of European centre half plus one centre half from the Premier League, or do you think the fact that Koundé and De Ligt are the same age doesn't really matter?
I mean, like, I wouldn't mind a Premier League centre back, but if it's I want a good centre back, not Webster or Kilman. Like, no. And Ake, I wouldn't mind Ake in general, right? If Ake didn't have the history with us that he has, I wouldn't be against signing Ake, because for the left side of centre back in the back three, he's very ideal. Do you know what I mean? But because we owned him already, and then we let him go, and then we had first bid, or was it buyback clause, whatever exactly it was from Bournemouth, and we decided against using it. And then he went to City, and now we'd have to pay probably significantly more than it would have been on that buyback clause. It just seems silly to me. It just seems like a case of, and I understand new ownership, and we got to just leave mistakes if they view it as such in the past, and make up for those if we can. Fair, but I feel like sometimes players' ships at clubs just have sailed, and I feel like Ake's ship at Chelsea should have sailed. Do you know what I mean? Just because we had him already, then we had the option to bring him back, and we still didn't bring him back. Do you know what I mean? And now we want him all of a sudden. It just seems like, I don't know. Like, look how much we're getting ridiculed for everything that happened with Lukaku. Do we really want to get another player that we had already and sign him? Nah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
I mean, as you say, he went to Bournemouth. We sold him to Bournemouth for about 20 odd mil. Good deal at the time. City bought him for 40 mil. He's still quite young. He's obviously more experienced now. City are going to want at least £40 million for him, if not more. I mean, I'd probably rather spend that on someone like a Koulibaly, for example, or put that money towards De Ligt or something else. But I mean, I get the feeling, last thing on centre backs, man, I think that perhaps now that De Ligt might have slightly overtaken Koundé in terms of being the number one target. I think maybe one of the reasons why Chelsea aren't acting on the Koundé deal is they know they can just do it, and they perhaps want to sort the De Ligt thing out first. I don't really know. That's kind of me me assuming.
But even then, though, right? If you want both, just get Koundé done, and then you can still work on De Ligt. Yeah. Like we touched on before, what's really important for new signings is having preseason with the new clubs. Now, if they miss a week of preseason, is it the worst in the world? No, that doesn't matter that much, right? So if we sign players, say, in 2 weeks from now, that's still okay. Do you know what I mean? But the later, the deeper you get into preseason and you sign players, the less of the more difficult it will be for them to adapt. And in my opinion, part of why Lukaku failed as hard as he did is because he didn't have preseason. I genuinely believe that. But on Tuchel's end, where he would have had longer in preseason to figure out, okay, Lukaku is this. He might not actually be this good at everything as he claims to be. I need to figure out another way to make this happen. And during the season, with how many games we played, that's more difficult to adjust to. But because he came so late in preseason, he even missed the first 1 or 2 games because we hadn't signed him yet. We can't be doing that again. Do you know what I mean? We cannot. And I'm sure, I guarantee it will happen for a couple of players, especially because the season starts a little earlier. Like the first game is on August 6th, and the transfer window is open until September 1st, right? So I guarantee that we will be signing some players after the season has started, and it will annoy me.
100%, yeah. No, it will. As we said, mate, 6 weeks, and 6 weeks today we play Everton. Would have been about half an hour into the game by now. But yeah, mate, obviously, moving away from defence, we haven't really been linked with any backup wing backs either, apart from that Jonathan Klaus from Lons. I think that would be a decent signing if it does happen. Yeah. But mate, let's get into the juicy stuff, the attackers. I know we've spoken about this in the group chat. There's a few that you're not a fan of, but let's just get right into it. I want to start with an outgoing first. We talked about Timo Werner, another one potentially on his way out. I've got mixed feelings about this. I've got to be honest, mate. Hakim Ziyech, supposedly on his way to AC Milan. Fabrizio reporting that Ziyech's agents have already had direct talks with Milan board. He'd be happy to join Milan. Being told Tuchel and Chelsea are open to let him go if right conditions are guaranteed. It was obviously going to be out of the three, out of Pulisic, Werner and Ziyech. It was probably always going to be Werner and Ziyech. Mate, how would you feel about Hakim Ziyech leaving? I feel like he's so talented and he's shown glimpses, but it's kind of just not really happened, has it?
No, it really hasn't. I mean, part of the problem is obviously the formation, but we don't know if we're going to change that. And by certain centre-back targets that we have still, Koundé, maybe that will be our only positive from this Koundé news. That maybe Tuchel is like, actually, I want to play a back four, and then Koundé isn't perfect for it. I know certain people will tell us, no, he is. He plays a back four for Sevilla all the time. Well, all well and good. But that's in La Liga, not the Premier League, right? I'm not saying he can't play a back four. Of course he can. But the next problem we have is also that the other main centre-back we have is Thiago Silva. Now, I don't want two centre-backs under 6 foot. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can't be having that. We'll concede 17 goals from corners every game. Do you know what I mean? So maybe the back, and if we switch to a back four, Ziyech would be almost like a new player, basically. Yeah. But the problem that I have with Ziyech, like you say, it hasn't really worked out. He's super inconsistent in terms of he'll have absolute blind over game. And then he'll have games where we're like, what on earth are you doing? Where seems like he can't be bothered, where he's not running properly. Like, he runs after balls in terms of pressing, but in terms of when we have the ball, I feel like he's always just standing around unless we're countering, right? And he's just so one-footed. And he's 29, right? Or is he 30 already? Like,
I think he's 28, 29, yeah.
Yeah, I think he turned 29 this season, or this past season. And then when you compare that to the other wingers that we have, Pulisic and Callum Hudson-Odoi, the other proper wingers, they're both young. So even if you would say, right, maybe Ziyech is better than them two, which I don't think anyway, but even if that was your opinion, which they're close enough that it's valid for everyone to have different opinions on this, but even if you had that opinion, someone that's nearly 30 compared to someone that's 22, 23, it's a big difference because Ziyech isn't going to get better. Pulisic and Hudson-Odoi should still be getting better. And currently, they're basically all on this very similar level, I would say. With Pulisic, in my opinion, probably being slightly the highest of the three. But with Callum, he's just been injured for, 3-4 months? So who knows where Callum is at these days. Just for that reason, I'd be like, if one has to go other than Werner, I would probably pick Ziyech.
Yeah.
But again, if we switch formation, that would change my opinion drastically. Then I think we should be reconsidering that because in this current formation, Mason Mount is the right side of the front three anyway, right? So then, yeah, sure you can let Ziyech go, but if you switch to a back four and Mount plays in midfield, then we have and Ziyech goes, then we have 0 right wingers or players that play on the right side of our attack, and you can't have that. So the fact that this room is out there annoys me in the sense that means we're sticking to a back three. But if we stick to a back three and I need to just accept that, then I'm okay with Ziyech leaving, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, for sure, mate. I think it's probably the right decision for both parties. I don't think he's getting enough football that he would want at this stage of his career. Even if we do switch formation, I reckon Tuchel's already got targets that he would prefer over Ziyech, which we'll get onto in a sec. But I mean, in terms of, mate, last week on Ziyech, in terms of an appropriate deal, do you think AC Milan might try for a loan deal, or do you think, straight cash? I mean, I don't know how much. I know that AC Milan have just had a been taken over. It's quite a lot of money to spend potentially. What do you think would be a fair price for Ziyech? I think we paid about 36, 38 million for him in January. Well, just after the January window, in Lampard's first season. I mean, what do you think would be a fair price to get back for him?
I don't know. I can't even remember. Was that 36, 38, whether that was in pounds or in euros? If I'm honest. I feel like it was in euros and it was a little less in pounds. I don't know. But like you said there, I'm pretty like AC Milan, every time we give them a player, it's always loans. Right?
Oh, always
the only
loans,
player they signed from us is Giroud, and they paid us 1 million or 1.5 million.
I got Tomori. We gave him Tomori for 25.
Yeah, but even that was a loan first.
That was a loan first. Yeah.
So the Bakayoko the same. I mean, they never signed him, but they constantly loan him with an option, and then they never take the flipping option. So they will probably go for a loan, and then we'll just have to negotiate with them, see how bad they want him. Maybe we can talk them into making it a permanent transfer, or at least a loan with an obligation to buy. Like, it depends on just how much money they have available to spend. I mean, they just won the league. They have new owners. You'd think they have a bit of money lying around, because why would they otherwise have, say, next year? Why would they have more money next year than they do now? To me, it wouldn't really make any sense. But I guess we'll have to see. But in terms of money for him, just similar to what we paid, I would say anywhere between 25 and 30 million pounds, I would say is acceptable.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, let's move on to some incomings. Before we get to our main target, we'll chat about a couple of ones that kind of a bit surprising, potentially. Ones that certainly I wasn't expecting us to be linked with. I know we've spoken about this before, mate. You're not a huge fan of this one. I'm going to get on to Richarlison. Brazilian. He's been playing number 9 for Everton. I've got to be honest. I mean, of course, Simon Phillips, in fairness, has been pretty accurate with a lot of things. Richarlison wants to leave the club, and players have been mentioned going the other way. We basically are swap player. We're basically like player swaps FC essentially at the moment. Those names now I understand to be Broja, Gilmour, and Tino Aneurin. I've seen Matt Law report that Everton are fans of Billy Gilmour and Conor Gallagher. So I think there's potential for a players plus cash deal for Richarlison. I know you're a fan of Gabriel Jesus, mate, and you would have preferred that to happen. It looks like he's going to Arsenal, which is disappointing, but I think Tuchel, obviously, Chelsea and Tuchel definitely prefer Raheem Sterling, who we'll get onto a bit later on. Mate, what do you make of the Richarlison links? I think he's got a couple of years left on his contract. If Everton are going to sell him and get money, they need to sell him this summer because they'll get far less next summer with 1 year left. I think Richarlison wants to leave. Tottenham have been interested as well. Look, for me, one, I love that he's a bit of a shithouse. Two, I think he's versatile, can play 9, can play on the left side as well. And look, if you just look at his numbers, they're not amazing, but he's a handful. And I think he's someone that would add good squad depth to the club. I mean, I know you see it a little bit differently. I mean, what are your thoughts on the links to Richarlison? Because some of them are quite concrete. And do you expect this to happen?
Well, I don't know if I expect it to happen. I have no idea, if I'm honest with you, mate. What to think of it now? Like you said, we've talked about it before, and my initial reaction was very much so against it. I'm still kind of against it, even though I see the idea. I see why maybe we try for that. Again, a lot of it depends on how much he'd cost, because if we'd have him and Havertz, I would still most certainly play Havertz over Richarlison. I feel like he'd just be a bit too expensive to mainly be a backup, because Havertz isn't the ideal striker anyway. And to then sign someone for reasonably big money, that's even a backup to someone that's already not ideal for this position, to me, just seems a bit questionable. I'm just not sure how much I rate him as a winger, you know? I mean, whenever I've seen him do good things, it's been up top for Everton. Not really sure how often I've seen him be that great on the wing. Maybe that's just me not having seen it, though. Like, I'm not saying he's not good at it. I'm just saying I haven't seen it. I don't know. Like, the whole shithouse thing is all well and good, but I feel like being a shithouse for Chelsea doesn't work.
No,
not really. Costa, sure, he made it work. But I feel like Richarlison would now come with a reputation, and we are who we are, and referees disadvantage us as they do. So I feel like Richarlison would just get sent off every other week. And I can't really be having that. And also, I saw some stats of his, and the only stats he's very good at are defensive stats. Like he's great at tackling and intercepting, all the and he touches it in his own box. I mean, that says enough about Everton this past season. But again, he like I would understand the idea is the kind of a mix of like to me, it's just a slightly worse Gabriel Jesus. Maybe slightly better physically in terms of a bit taller, maybe a bit stronger. Not sure about pace. Probably very similar those two. So I'd understand the idea of having not a proper 9, but like something a bit more fluid. I understand that. So maybe I've gone slightly away from my initial strong no, but I'm still not a big fan of it. But hey, if it happens, it happens, and then I'll see how it goes, and then judge whether I was right to be against it or not. But I won't like say we sign him, I won't be like, oh, fuck off, go away. I don't like it. No. If we do sign him, I'll be like, I'll give him a chance and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, no, for sure, mate. I mean, I'm quite like this deal. I mean, I don't know if it's going to happen or not. It remains to be seen. But as you say, like he's similar to Gabriel Jesus, who unfortunately is going to go to Arsenal. I'd quite liked him at Chelsea, but Richarlison is. I'm not saying he's better, or I think he's on a par. I don't think there's an awful lot between the two of them. Richarlison obviously hasn't really played. Yeah, Jesus and Richarlison. I don't think there's an awful lot of difference between them. I mean, like
Richarlison won like what 5 Premier Leagues, and the other one
because of the team he's played in. I would like to see Richarlison.
Sure, but we want players that have experience winning shit, not more players that bottle it every time there's something big on the line.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see Richarlison play in a better side, whether it's going to be Chelsea or not. I mean, I think we've got leverage here as well that we can perhaps lower the fee, because Lampard is obviously interested in quite a few of our players, so we could maybe offer him Gilmour. I'll be quite happy to see Gilmour go permanently. I know that might not be popular with some sections of the fan base, but I just don't think Gilmour is it to push us forward. That's just as simple as that, in my opinion. But I mean, if we could do something now, I'll be quite happy to see Richarlison come in and get someone else shipped out of the club potentially. But yeah, it's definitely one to stay across. I mean, it's definitely one that I'm going to keep an eye on. I'm certainly quite interested in it. But another one, mate, before we get on to Raheem Sterling, who is by all accounts the main target, Leeds United's Raphinha. Now, this is another guy who I'm a fan of. It looks like at the moment that Arsenal, annoyingly, seem to be in pole position for him. Fabrizio a couple of days ago saying that basically Leeds have been pretty clear with all clubs interested in Raphinha that he can leave, but they want at least 65 million fee. I think he's 25 years of age, Brazilian international. Arsenal had a bid rejected. Spurs looking for new talks. Chelsea have had contact through Bowley. And Barca have had one from Deco. All got the same message. Raphinha, obviously, of course, represented by former Chelsea midfield player Deco. Mate, what do you make of this? Raphinha, I mean, £65 million is a lot of money. Leeds have just got £40-odd million for Calvin Phillips plus add-on, so they're not in a exactly dire need to sell from a financial perspective. But I think if the money was right, they would. Mate, are you a fan of Raphinha? I do really like him.
I like him quite a lot as a player, actually. I just think 65 million is way too much.
Yeah.
Like, way too much. Like, he's 25, and the biggest club he's played for is Leeds, who, again, have barely scraped relegation. Like, with the edge of their teeth. Do you know what I mean? Like, really scraped avoiding relegation. So that's my problem. And the fact that Arsenal are after him, sure, they just went for Jesus, who I would have liked. But I don't know. The fact that Arsenal want him in pole position, there's nobody else bigger than Arsenal properly after them. Well, Barcelona and Chelsea, but that's contact, right? Not properly bidding like Arsenal have. So, I don't know. I take him. I definitely take him. But the 65 million is just too much money. Like I think he would be like a Willian. Not in terms of same play style, but in terms of how good he'd be for the club. So like he'd be decent, but there would also, after not long into it, there would be a lot of fans just having to go at him constantly. But, I mean, that's partly just what our fan base is, unfortunately. But yeah, I think he's a good player. He's got a great left foot. He's obviously been at Leeds, so his work rate is mental, and he can also handle it physically, which is also a good sign. But yeah, 65 is just a bit too much, in my opinion.
Yeah, but I'd agree. If we could get the fee down, maybe if we can find some other players that we don't want that we can offer as a swap deal, then maybe that lowers the fee, and Leeds might be accepting of some of our kind of squad players. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely one to keep an eye on. But it looks like Arsenal seems to be in pole position. I think Chelsea, Raphinha, he's probably interested. He'll be on the list, as they always say. But I'm not sure how high up that list he is realistically. I would say he's definitely behind Sterling and Richarlison, to be honest. And he's probably behind Dembele as well. Mate, just moving on to Dembele. Obviously, seems to be not really a lot of update there. I'm just going to bring up a little thread from Ben Jacobs quickly, just with the latest on that. He's basically saying that, like, you know, it's no secret that Tuchel is keen on Dembele. Chelsea will also not match the salary increase Dembele wants at Barcelona or anywhere close, but he would become the highest earner at Stamford Bridge. Situation will become clearer next week as Barcelona demand an answer. Mate, what are your thoughts on this? The Dembele thing, obviously, Tuchel likes him. I think there's so much talent there. Injury record, as we've said many times, is not the best. As a free transfer, yes, you know, it's definitely worth it. But at the moment, I still think I just feel he's perhaps using Chelsea and other clubs to potentially try and get a better deal out of Barcelona. Does it concern you at all the fact he straight away become the highest earner at the Bridge?
It depends on whether that's before or after Werner leaves, because Lukaku's obviously out the door already.
Yeah.
But I think Kante is then the highest earner after Lukaku leaves. So that would mean he'd earn more than Kante. Yeah, that is mental. For a guy that's been... How long has he been at Barcelona for? 3 or 4 seasons?
3 or 4 years. He's barely played.
Yeah. I mean, the second half of this season, he's been decent. He's played. He's not gotten another injury second half of the season, so that's good. But before that, he's basically always been injured. And, I mean, he's quite literally the sole reason Liverpool won the Champions League in 2019. Because...
He missed that sitter.
Had an absolute sitter in the first day against Liverpool, would have made it 4-0. And I think 4-0 would have put it out of sight. And then Liverpool wouldn't have had probably one of the greatest comebacks in footballing history. So, in all accords, that annoys me about him. If he uses us to just leverage a bigger deal with Barcelona, that annoys me even more about him. Highest earner, I mean... I never really know what to think of this, because now if we want to challenge City, like we always challenge Liverpool and City, and that is partly true. But if Liverpool don't start giving out bigger wages, long term, they also won't be challenging City, in my opinion. Like they will for a few more years, but if they at some point don't start increasing their wages to the levels of Man City, then they will also struggle to get certain levels of players. So, to some extent, I'm like, well, if Todd Boehly does what he's supposed to do as new owner and like increase our revenue by getting bigger sponsorships, by improving our brand as a whole and making more money in all sorts of directions, eventually, over the next few years, obviously that will take a while, but still, whether that's renovate Stamford Bridge or increase Stamford Bridge or build a new stadium, whatever it is, with new revenue coming in, we can eventually afford bigger wages. But a player that's been injured so much, that only really gets assists, doesn't really score that much.
No, he's a creator for sure. Yeah, his goal scoring record is poor.
And which is like, it's great that with the balls that he plays, and you know, especially if we get Sterling loves nothing more than a tap in, and Dembele is great at providing tap ins. So as a combination, maybe that works. But if we only get Dembele and no Sterling, then who scores? And if we only get Sterling but no creator as good as Dembele, who gives Sterling the chances? So it's like,
it's a problem, mate. I mean, obviously, it looks like next week is going to be key because Barcelona want a final answer from Dembele.
That's what they said there for the past 3 weeks.
Well, yeah, but maybe next week with pre-season potentially starting, etc. At the end of next week, they probably want an answer before then. I think it's definitely one to keep an eye on. It's gone a bit quieter. But I would expect Dembele possibly to arrive. But it's clear to me that Sterling is the number one priority, 100%. And we'll come on to that now, mate. What do you make of the fact that Sterling seems to be the main priority in the attacking positions for Chelsea? I mean, I'm not saying he's a bad player. He's not. And I've kind of slightly warmed a little bit more to this deal than I initially was, in terms of the fact that the price potentially is not going to be too high. He's Premier League proven, in England international, has got a great record for sure. But is he coming in as a winger, or is he coming in as a centre forward? Because if he's coming in as a centre forward, I'm not a fan of this move. But if he's coming as a winger, I am a fan of it. So I think that's very key. I mean, do you see that in a similar light?
Yes. I cannot understand how this is a thing. that he is supposed to be coming in as false nine. Like, I cannot understand that whatsoever. Like, I understand that he played that at times. I think so. Not last season, this past season, the one before for City at times. But nah, man. Like, what? Sorry. What? Like, I'm so confused. Like, number one, this weak foot isn't good enough to be playing in the middle, in my opinion. I just don't understand. It's like he's just like, I understand. Okay, we don't want a proper number 9 now. Lukaku was a bit too much. Like, Lukaku was massive and big in all directions. But Sterling, like, he's what, 5'7"? Like no. Like, no. Like, we're not City. We are not Pep. Like, we don't play like City. So why should we have a forward like City? That makes no sense to me. I mean, I'm not saying if we sign him, he can't play there every now and again when things are necessary. Say Havertz is the main guy, and Havertz is either has an injury or is suspended or needs a rest or whatever it may be, right? I'm not saying he can't then play there on a couple of occasions, obviously. But if we were signing him with that being the main intention of where to play him, I'm not a fan of that at all. In general, him being the number 1 target, it's a weird one. Talent-wise, I think Dembele is far superior, but obviously Dembele has a lot of things going against him. His injury record, his, attitude problems, discipline problems that he's had at Barcelona, just wages. There's a lot of things there that Sterling doesn't have. Now, Sterling is number 1, has a bit of an idea of what to do in our formation because England played a formation. Sure, not the exact same process of playing and style of playing within the formation, but at least the formation. I mean, he carried England through the Euros basically by himself. So he knows how to be effective in this formation at least, so that's an advantage. That's a positive. I think he would also really, like, even though for Dembele to some extent and for Sterling, it would kind of be, they might view it as a little bit of a step down coming to us because, for Sterling, you'd be leaving City because he isn't playing as regularly as he would like. Let's be honest, right? For Dembele, it's maybe a bit different, but because Barcelona have deteriorated so much in where they've been since they signed him. Where Barcelona were when they initially signed Dembele, it's probably higher up than where we are right now in terms of opinions of people outside of England. But I feel like Sterling, I don't know. Number 1, he'd be coming back to London where he's from, but also I feel like he'd be more gritty to be like, I need to prove to everyone they might not have quite had me a titty to start as regularly, but I want to make sure that everyone's aware that was a mistake. I'm a baller. So I see that. He's 27, is he? Has won a lot of things. His experience of winning, that's a positive. Like, we signed an experienced attacker in Ziyech, but we signed an experienced attacker in Ziyech from the Dutch league. Sure, he's won every single thing there, but it's the Dutch league. It's different. I'm not saying, and I'm not even saying that because it's a lesser quality. It is, but I'm also saying that it's like for here, it doesn't translate to as your experience at winning when you've experienced winning the Dutch league, especially at Ajax, when you're like, I guess to some extent City are that as well, just expect to win, but Liverpool have gotten them close plenty of times. Do you know what I mean? So it was at least a fight. I'm sure Ajax have fights with PSV or Feyenoord every now and again. I don't follow it that closely, but you expect Ajax to win the league every year. So I'm not sure how much, crunch time, end of the season experience that is. So I would like Sterling. I take him for sure, especially if the money isn't too big. Because we need wingers, man. We need to improve on something. Would he play on the left? Would he play on the right if he came as a winger? Who knows? Probably depends on who else stays and who else we sign. But I would be for it. I'm absolutely okay with signing Sterling. He's also a reasonably big name, which is always good in terms of a bit of a statement. But is it a statement to sign someone from the same league who's not a regular start for them? Maybe not. There's a lot of pros and some cons. Yeah. But as long as he doesn't play up top and is not too expensive, I wouldn't.
I mean, just on that starts, mate. Clutch is saying that Sterling played 47 games last season and had 32 starts. I'd say that was regular starting if that's correct.
I mean, City played 60 games, so that's 50% starts.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it's not bad that considering their squad.
It's not bad, but he probably wants to play more around 75% of games, or start 75% of games rather than 50.
Yeah, let's hope that a bid's going to come in. Matt Law reporting today that Tuchel's had contact with Sterling ahead of Chelsea bid for City forward. So I presume a bid may hopefully coming next week. I'd be for it. Last thing on this, mate. In terms of obviously the forward line, if Sterling is to come in and play predominantly as a winger, which we would fully expect, and fill in occasionally as a 9. To rotate with Havertz, etc. Where do you think that would leave Armando Broja? Now, West Ham are interested in him. 35 million pounds. I think Napoli are interested as well. Tuchel's made it clear that before anything's done, he wants to assess him in pre-season. Mate, do you think there's space for Broja in this squad? I mean, a lot of people rave about him. I thought he started well on loan at Southampton, but he fizzled out badly and didn't do a lot. I've got to be honest, mate. I don't think Broja's ready to have a place in the squad this season at Chelsea. I think he needs to go on loan again if we don't sell him.
Yeah, Broja is a weird one because I think the biggest problem with this is Broja himself, at least if reports are true. Because apparently he wants assurances of game time wherever he is next season, whether that's
he's not playing regularly here.
Yeah, whether that's at Chelsea or elsewhere. And I'm not sure how much he'd want another loan, the way I've understood certain reports. Again, who knows whether those reports are true, but if they are, I think that's kind of the biggest problem with him, if I'm honest. I don't know. Like, what I think we should be doing is use him to leverage a deal and get Rice. That's what I think we should do. If West Ham want him, and Pice put it in a group chat the other day where the West Ham report was Chelsea are demanding too much money for Broja, and West Ham are currently not willing to pay that. And he was like, ironic. Well, yeah, exactly. So you asked too much for Rice. We'll ask too much for Broja. You lower your price on Rice, we'll lower our price on Broja. Or it's some sort of swap plus cash deal. Or player plus cash deal, sorry. I'd be okay with him leaving. I'd also be okay with him staying as a... actually, I would quite like him as a backup striker, to be honest. Say Havertz is the main guy. And then to play up front. And then sometimes it's Sterling, depending on opponent. But then sometimes we also want a bit of a more proper striker. Then to at least have one in the squad would be good. Now, if he's not happy with that, that's obviously a bit of a problem. But if we ignore his happiness level, it would actually be ideal, in my opinion. Now, am I saying he's amazing? No. But he's a good player that has ability that will probably get better if he's training a season with us, with Tuchel, with these players that we have, compared to being at Southampton and stuff. So I would like to keep him, but I'd rather... If we can't get Rice without giving him to West Ham, I'd rather use him for that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, for sure, mate. I agree. I think we can definitely... I think that's the way Bowley's certainly going about things at the moment. It seems to be like he's very much up for using players plus cash or potential just straight swaps. We're not going to get a straight swap for Declan Rice, that's for sure. But, mate, before we finish, mate, can't not talk about Declan Rice. Midfield's an area that, really needs addressing, particularly a holding midfield player. Mate, it very much seems that Chelsea are very much only being linked with Declan Rice. There's not really any concrete links for any other holding midfield players. We've seen Calvin Phillips go to Manchester City a couple of days ago. Obviously, United are after Frankie de Jong. So it very much seems that it's an open goal for Chelsea to go and get Declan Rice. Do you think now, mate, that it's very much Rice or no one for Chelsea in midfield this summer?
Yeah. And I'm not sure if we'll get him this summer, if I'm honest. Now, but if we stick to a 3, I think we can handle that, not getting him this summer. If we want to switch to a 4, I think we need Rice for that. Is it? Well, not Rice specifically, but a proper DM, and he's the only one we're being linked to. Yeah. Because I think in a pivot, I think we can handle that for another season. And obviously, it all depends on Kante's fitness, Kovacic's fitness, Jorginho's form, because Jorginho is not old enough to just be shit consistently now. If he somehow gets himself the form that he had throughout the season of, the year of 2021, we're balling. But if he more goes back to the form that he's had kind of since just before the start of the turn of the year and then the second half of the season, obviously sometimes playing through injuries, overplaying, all of that, I understand that. But that form, him in that form is a bit of a problem. But if he finds his 21 form again, less of a problem in the back 3. So yeah, I'd like Rice, but if it doesn't happen, I'd probably rather sign no one in midfield and sign Rice next year than I would to sign another DM instead this year who cost us a lot of money and then be the reason why we don't sign Rice next year. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I just don't know if we could afford to go into next season with the same midfield options. I mean, that would presume that. Do you think, are you envisaging both Jorginho and Kante to stay this summer? Because
Well, if we don't sign Rice, they will.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you think that their futures very much depend on whether Rice comes in rather than not.
See, even if Rice does come in, I wouldn't be surprised if both stay, if I'm honest.
Really? Do you not think we're overpopulated in there if Rice gets added to what we've already got? Because I mean, Ruben's most likely going to stay. I think Gallagher will probably stay. Gilmore probably go. I'd imagine. Ampadu probably go as well. But like, I know we've got 5 subs and stuff, but it's very much getting congested in there if Jorginho and Kante stay, and then Rice comes as well.
See why? Well, I see what you're saying 100%. Now, if we would sign Rice, in my head, we would change to a back 4 and a 3-man midfield, 1 DM, 2 8s.
Yeah.
And then I think just that change would make us less congested because then you'd have Rice and Jorginho for the 6, cover, Mount, Gallagher, and Kante for the 8. And then you just have 2 per position. Yeah, but Ruben is just the one. Like, as much as I love Ruben is just the 5th choice. If we have injuries, Ruben plays. If we don't have injuries, Ruben doesn't play. Like, if we need him at wing back, we'll throw him in there. If we need him at centre back, like we did at Luton, we'll throw him in there. If we need him as a 6, we'll throw him in there. If we need him as an 8, we'll throw him in there. Like, that's what he'll be. And I think Ruben will accept that. Okay, Ruben is actually good money, to be fair, and 150k. So maybe he's on too much money to be not even 5th choice centre back. It'd be 7th choice centre back essentially. Let's say centre back, midfield, of course. I'm not saying that will happen. I'm just saying I wouldn't be surprised if it does happen. If we sign Rice, just because I feel like we might not get. Because which one would you sell? It would be Jorginho, but the problem is now if you get rid of Jorginho, then who's Rice's backup? Then we're just starting the same problem all over again if Rice picks up an injury. And then we're in the same situation anyway, right? Just worse because we don't even have Jorginho. So, like, then who's the backup 6? No one. And then would you sell Kante? I maybe would. But Tuchel is such a big fan of him.
Mate, he loves him.
There's no chance Bowley will let him go, I don't think. I mean, maybe I'm wrong on that. But if Bowley really wants to just give Tuchel what Tuchel wants, and Tuchel loves Rice that much, loves Kante that much, then Kante isn't going anywhere. So that's why I'm saying I wouldn't be surprised if they both stay, even if Rice stays. Now, obviously, both of their contracts run out next summer, which is a problem, 100%. But then that's like, before that's a problem, that depends on whether they'd be willing to sign extensions or not. And we are publicly not aware of this. Like, they might be. If they're happy to sell 1 or 2 year contract extensions, fine. But
I think we need to establish that this summer, though, don't we? I think that's key, that we need to find out this summer if they want to sign an extension. I don't think we can go into the start of next season and we don't know what they're doing, because then we're just going to be in a repeat situation that we had with Rudiger and Christensen. And I'm not saying we get loads of money for Kante and Jorginho, but you'd think we'd at least get 50, 60 million pounds for the pair of them. We need to make sure we do that rather than potentially run a risk of losing them for free. So they need to sign a new deal this summer, in my opinion, if they're going to stay.
See, that's where I'm not sure, because, hear me out on this, because they're both just got 1 year left on a contract now. Okay, to be honest, the estimate of 60 million for the pair of them might be fair. But if theoretically we gave one or both of them a 2-year extension and then sold them, we'd get more money from them than if we just sold them now. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So, but then again, if we then sell him next year, then they would be back to 1 year on their contract, wouldn't they? So, wouldn't really make a difference, I guess.
No, it wouldn't really.
Unless it's a 2-year extension to the contract they already have, but that usually doesn't happen that way, does it?
No, it's normally like when players get to 30 odd at Chelsea, it's very much 1 year rolling contracts, unless you're David Luiz and you get a 2 year. But yeah, I mean, But it's certainly interesting times in the midfield. It's weird, isn't it, though? Like, the one position that we feel is the most important one to get addressed, other than defence, is the midfield. Yet it's the one position where we've hardly been linked with anyone other than Declan Rice, which is surprising, really. Maybe something's going on behind the scenes that we don't know about. It is weird.
I've thought about this a few times with the whole midfield situation, right? Because when you act like, and I've agreed with this publicly, that DM is almost priority after the centre backs. Now that two of them have left, obviously. But when you look at it now, the ability of players that we have in midfield and the ability of players that we have in attack, like Jorginho was third in a Ballon d'Or 6 months ago. I know he's had a poor time since then, but still, Kovacic, we all think he's a baller. And Kante is mainly the injury problems rather than him being bad. So they're all actually really good players, all three of them. And you add Mount there, you add Gallagher there. I mean, some people for some reason don't rate Gallagher. People really rate Gallagher. For me, I think people put way too much emphasis on Palace in both directions. They're saying, he was only good at Palace. It's Palace. That doesn't count for Chelsea. And the other people are on a complete flip side of that, where they're like, look how great it was at Palace. I'm like, neither of that is relevant. He needs to come here, and then we'll see how good he is for us. Like, we've seen certain things at Palace, but you can't say, he's not good enough technically and at passing. Yeah. He plays at Palace. Like, it's different. You can't just compare that to what it would be like here. Like Gilmour, for us, he's been amazing at passing. He was at Norwich. He was dog shit as passing. He lost the ball more than bloody Mason Mount, and he plays in attack. Like, that's mental. And Billy Gilmour plays in 6. Like, that's ridiculous. Do you know what I mean? So, I don't know. Maybe it's actually understandable. It's just us that think what changes the whole team is a new DM. But what if it doesn't? Because if signing Rice doesn't fix all of our creative problems, all of our structure problems, if we're wrong about this as fans, then midfield is not the priority at all. But if we're right and getting someone like Rice would almost fix everything, then it is the priority. But maybe Tuchel disagree. I imagine he must not think of it as extremely as a lot of us do, because otherwise we would have probably been after a midfielder more, I think.
Yeah, no, mate, I would agree. I think literally it isn't in midfield now, mate. It's well documented. Tuchel loves Rice. He is, in my opinion, I think he is the only target. He's number one choice. We want him. We need to make it happen. But whether it happens or not, I think it's one of them that, is going to go. It'll be one of those that you said earlier, mate. It's going to go up to, I wouldn't be surprised if potentially this season started and then we got Rice in. I don't think it's going to be one of those deals that gets done quickly. I think it's going to take a lot. At least with
Rice being in the Premier League, being English, being best mates with Mount anyway, and knowing half the squad from the England camp, for him, I don't think it would be that big of a problem if he joined us later.
I don't think it would be. But yeah,
except
I think
for tactics, right? But
yeah, for sure. But I mean, I think he's got the relevant experience. I mean, to be honest, mate, as long as he comes in, I'm kind of almost not too fussed whether it's before. It's not going to be before pre-season, but I'm not too fussed whether it's before the season starts or whether it's like after the season starts. As long as he arrives, I think I'll be happy. But yeah, man, that seems like a good place to round out. We've got through a lot there. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in the chat. Really appreciate all your input and your support. Please do smash a like on the stream and please make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you're watching now and you're not subscribed, just click that button. It really helps me out. Also, guys, make sure you subscribe to Laurenz's channel. He's on, road to 15K still, getting closer.
Yeah, road to 15K, obviously working quite a bit at the moment. So I'm struggling to put out more than one stream a week at the moment. So that slow things down a little bit. But I am on that one stream a week. I'll definitely be back Monday. But that will soon be over and then we'll be back to streaming more regularly. So yeah, that road to 15K is coming. So please subscribe to Charlie, ladies and gentlemen. Please do.
Thank you, mate. Guys, I'll be back in the next few days when there's some more news. So until then, stay tuned. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. And as always, up the Chelsea.